and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lena Norms. If you haven't been here before, to be honest, the only context you need for this video is I'm a person who's on Instagram. But first, before we get on with that, I just want to say, if you have not registered to vote and you're in the UK and you're eligible to vote, by the 7th of May you need to do so if you want to vote in the European elections. Why would you want to do that? I hear Brexit, duh. Then stay until the end of the video because I'll explain a little bit more about it then. Anyway, Instagram. Recently, Facebook, who own Instagram, after some rumours pittering about, have announced that they are taking away the public like function on the platform. And I think whether this move is good or bad bears some inspection. Firstly, it's the first time a platform has openly admitted that their first metric of success was wrong. Facebook have admitted previously that algorithms can be too sensitive, can be unsensitive to certain things, but they've never really gone on to something that was like a pivotal part of the building of the platform and said, actually, we're going to take that building block out. There's acknowledgement for lots of mental health studies that Instagram platforms like it have a negative impact on self-esteem. Now, I have my own opinions about that, and I think that the keeping up with the Joneses phenomenon has been very prevalent throughout human history, and perhaps even worse in certain stages of our development. And just because we are now studying and measuring that doesn't mean that before it was better. It just means we now have a metric from which to write a hot take article about it. But at the same time, never has a measurement of whether you're popular or not been so available. I think it's socially evident in any small or big group of mammals who is the popular one, who's the least popular one, but having a metric that's so like tickered up one day, down the next, is potentially jarring for a human psyche that isn't quite evolved to be able to filter that. The leaders at Instagram said, "We want your followers to focus on what you share, not how many likes your posts get. The account user will still be able to see the number of likes a post receives. It will show a couple of profile photos next to call a few names who have liked the photo, but no longer the exact number of people who like the post. But you as the creator can see how many people like the post, and you could still share those metrics with others if you wanted, particularly when it comes to brand deals. I think a few creators were worried because they feel like they have a very high conversion rate. For anyone who doesn't know what conversion rate is, it just means the amount of followers versus how many people are actually interacting and talking to you, watching your stuff. But it also begs the question of how valuable likes and shares are. To me, a follower is somebody who made a decision once that they liked you. They did one click. So while they are following you, they've asked to be served your content. Are they a follower of you? Are they a fan? I don't think they are a fan. I think if you follow me, you're interested in what I have to say, but it doesn't mean you either agree or disagree. Follow isn't an endorsement. And again, I think it's interesting when people measure, say, how successful I am on YouTube because of my subscribers. So I have like nearly 60,000 subscribers. And people are like, she has 60,000 fans. And I'm like, no, I have around 10,000 people who are interested in what I have to say. That's how many people usually are watching and clicking on my videos and listening. I consider that my accurate metric. So to have that equivalent metric on Instagram being taken away is interesting, but it also begs the question, like, how are we too dependent on that? For me, I am excited about this because I think it takes away the dangers that come with confirmation bias. It always fucks me that I'm like, do I like the music that I liked from my childhood because I genuinely liked it, or because I was an impressionable child and I liked the things that my friends liked and I wanted to go to the same concerts and gigs as they did and wear the same t-shirts as them. And as they've got older, I think I'm more certain in what I like, and I even started a Spotify playlist this month called Lena Possibly Likes Gaelic Music, and then I've been slowly exploring Gaelic music and adding stuff to my playlist that I like because, like, I have this deep sense that I might actually be a huge Gaelic music geek. That's a cool thing to share with the internet, Lena. When we choose a partner, we don't look at how many other partners that person has had and how well they've rated them. When we go to a library or a bookshop, we don't see how many people have already bought that book. There's no sales figures stamped on the spines. How dystopian would that be? When everybody just watched television, who has a television anymore? If you have an actual TV that you flick the channels on, please tell me in the comments below, because I don't, are you still out there? You don't immediately see the figures of how many other people watch that. Like, you sit down and watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and be like, oh, there's only 3 million people watching this now, or must be getting crapper. So it is weird that we want to know immediately how many other people have liked something before we like it. That's why when we go to the ballot, it's a blind ballot. You don't find out how other people feel until the world is already crumbling around you. You don't find out how other people feel until they start counting the votes. I was listening to the High Low podcast and they were talking about how a lot of their friends have started deleting Instagram, using it less, having a big deep suspicion around it. We've also seen brands like Wetherspoons, lol. I'd love to see a successful Wetherspoons Instagram because I think it's possible. But anyway, Wetherspoons left, and also Lush left Instagram. They very publicly deleted their profile, and it's this question of like, are we losing faith in social media platforms to help us connect? I think social media platforms are realizing that if they don't serve the users will leave. We're still humans, we exist outside of it, we're not as dependent on it as they hoped. So Instagram just released this function of close friends, so you can share like stories just with your close friends. You can make a list of people that you want to see certain posts, and they can, which I think is really good. Like creating an onion of privacy around what you share is really important. So I understand all the hesitations around not wanting to use Instagram anymore, and I'm excited that Instagram are making healthy changes to the way their platform functions, even if it's motivated by the need to be relevant. I also think that a display of likes creates a bit of unity. If you see a bit of art, a poem, a comment on Instagram that represents who you are, represents what you believe, voices a worry that you have, and you see other people also care about that issue, it can really help your motivation to engage with that content. It can make you feel less alone. For me, I manage social media as my job for a brand, and Instagram is an incredibly valuable platform for me as a professional because, fun fact, fact I've heard and had confirmed in several articles, is that on the average, like a tweet stays in somebody's feed now 17 minutes. It is becoming increasingly a nightmare to reach people on Twitter if you're not constantly tweeting the same thing. It's creating a lot more work, and it's also creating a motivation for brands to tweet the same thing again and again and again. Because there's so much traffic on Twitter and the algorithm is sometimes so poor, 17 minutes it might be all you get in somebody's feed, and that doesn't even mean that they've seen it. It just means it exists on their feed. When you scroll to the bottom before you have to refresh, it'll be in that rolling wheel of information and memes. Facebook's becoming increasingly hard to reach people on for a whole plethora of other reasons. But Instagram is a really valuable platform for both businesses, and I don't mean bad businesses, there are a lot of good businesses out there, and for personal people who have a personal message to share, but like potentially a guest like me. My posts can stay in a feed for days, weeks, and they usually have a lot more of a deeper interaction. So for example, if I ask a question on Twitter, I might get 10 responses. If I asked a question on Instagram, it's around for a lot longer and more people are engaged on Instagram and are ready to, I don't know, I just feel like people turn up to Instagram a bit more with their heart. So I get hundreds and hundreds of replies if I ask a question about an issue. I'm also worried about all this commentary of having the next generation of people completely want their privacy and come off social media altogether. They'll want the opposite of what we have. And for some reason, that scares me. And I'm not somebody who grew up with the internet. I only had my own private access to a computer when I was 19, and I had very limited access to the internet before that. The tools itself, social media, the tool, I see as a neutral thing. Like Laura Jane Williams says, like that Instagram is the magazine you curate yourself. Like if you're seeing damaging stuff on your feed and people making you feel unworthy and you've picked to follow those people, I don't know what to tell you. Like as somebody who doesn't use the discovery tab, I have a very peaceful time on Instagram. But I worry that people are short-sighted and don't see how shallow we are in the water of our coping mechanisms with social media and how we interact with it. We create it, we create our own behaviour towards it, and we haven't evolved that yet. And to give up and be like, no, it's damaging, it's all ruining everything, really leaves behind all the good stuff that being on social media and cultivating being part of an online community as a skill, not something you'll automatically do healthily and well at the beginning, is really important. The idea of some people wanting to be invisible on social media, I think there's a difference between being invisible, which is not giving away your personal details, not sharing stuff about your life you're not ready to, not sharing your face if you don't want to, is fine. But if being invisible on social media is being disconnected from people, being unwilling to hear conversations outside of your own postcode, that scares me, I think. And again, like with, say on the high-low, they were like, oh, well, we're just going to start WhatsApping each other our personal pictures and our thoughts. And I'm like, that's really cool, but do you know how close you have to be with somebody to even have their number nowadays, be in a WhatsApp group with somebody? It can be a huge It can create intimacy, but with intimacy can often come echo chamber, and I think you need both in your life to function. Have your secret WhatsApp groups when you talk about real stuff, but also turning up to these shared spaces, witnessing arguments, witnessing problems, witnessing rallying and communities building and coming together is really important for us to stop repeating the problems of the past. Most of the people that I've met outside of my own socio-economic, how is that so hard to say? Most of the people that I've met outside of my own realm have been because of the internet. It's much more likely that I'd have been a much more insular person and had much more conservative views about the world and other people not like me if it wasn't for the internet. And I'm still learning, and the internet helps me do that every single day. Good example, I recently joined the Extinction Rebellion Facebook group. It was really interesting. I was like, yeah, this movement is for me. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. And then I went on Instagram stories and somebody had shared a post about including BAME voices in Extinction Rebellion, what work they need to do to make it relevant to people who aren't white and middle class. And I was like, oh, that wasn't being told by the people who are running it, and it also isn't something that I would have potentially stumbled upon if it hadn't been for Instagram. Every day I see somebody having a rant or talking about a nuanced, misunderstood aspect of their identity or how they see the world, and I understand it a bit more because they've got the chance to explain it in their own time, in the privacy of their own home, without the need to stand up physically on a stage against people or deal with the physical ailments of fear, and explain to me their point of view in their own time, not making them do that work 200 times for individual people, but letting them do that work once so that thousands of people can learn the same lesson at the same time, therefore draining less people of less energy. I could go on all day about the amazing, incredible movements I've seen go on Instagram and other platforms like it. We could talk all day about the crazy community that I've found here on YouTube, especially within the Gumption Club, my Patreon group, but also with all of you in the comments, like things that we've got to know about each other over the years, individual ones of you that I've met in real life because of this platform, hundreds of you probably, and that is all because we stayed and turned up for each other. Yeah, we didn't turn up for YouTube, we didn't turn up for Facebook, we didn't turn up for Instagram. We turned up for each other because we know that we'd see each other there. It's kind of like having a favourite pub with your friends. Apart from, if all your friends stop going to that pub, you'd also stop going to the pub. It's not really the pub that brings you there, it's the collective agreement that that's where you want to meet. That's where you want to listen and spend time. And also, yeah, while social media and Instagram does drain your time sometimes and you can be scrolling and seeing nothing, I think there is something interesting about turning up to a space and not knowing what you want to get out of it, because again, we could have these more nuanced conversations about race and class and social change in other places, but they would require a self-selecting process. You'd have to join an environmental forum or go googling for something, and turning up to these very ambiguous platforms where you could stumble upon anything and lots of different things get suggested to you. It can help you scoop things into your basket you didn't know you needed, asking the questions you didn't know. Long story short, I'm very excited that Instagram have introduced this and they've listened to users about trying to make the platform better and admitted that it is potentially damaging to push metrics in this way. We should be absorbing cool stuff that people make on the internet, but we shouldn't be doing it because we can see it's popular or have the opportunity to judge if it's not popular. I recently participated in a Instagram challenge that Savannah Brown set up, which was all about writing a poem every day in April. Sure, I didn't write a poem every day. I wrote 15 poems in total, I think. That's more poems than I've ever written in my life, and I interacted with so many other people who wrote poems as well, and it was this really positive, non-superficial community time that I spent on Instagram, connecting with people on a deeper level. And the more that is democratized and the less that we only absorb our hot takes from who a newspaper will commission, who a TV channel will have on, the better, I personally think. And they are my thoughts, but they're not your thoughts. What are your thoughts on this? You probably use Instagram. Do you follow me? Let's talk about poetry and deep things. Has it damaged you in any way? Do you think that's the platform's fault, or do you think that's your impression of how you should behave on the platform? Thank you so much for listening. If you like deep chats like this, I have a Patreon group called the Gumption Club. It's a secret Facebook group where you get a free download of a poetry book, get loads of book giveaways, and we have deep ass discussions, just like, I'm never going to do that accent again, deep ass discussions. And we have deep ass discussions about lots of stuff like this all the time. So if you want to find like-minded people, do consider joining the Gumption Club. It keeps the channel running. Also, if you live in the UK and you care about humans, do register to vote by the 7th of May for the European elections. I will leave a link below. Why should you vote in the European elections, I hear you ask? Brexit's going to happen, believe it or not. 31st of October, new deadline for death. I hear you. However, I'd just like to read out this very interesting paragraph I found on the Refinery 29 site. Why the election matters. It may seem counterintuitive to bother voting at all, considering the UK is due to leave the EU on the 31st of October. Many political commenters believe the results will be a barometer of the way voters now feel about Brexit 3 years on. If the countless polls suggesting the referendum, were it to be repeated, would now render a Remain vote are to be believed, it could even be worth staying up to watch the results roll in on election night. So it's a chance, whether you voted Leave or Remain, if you now feel like it's better that we stay in the European Union, for you to again demonstrate your feelings on that. And that really should be something the politicians take into account in this very, very vital time for our country. Swim or literally fucking sink. So please do tell your friends to register by the 7th of May. It's very, very important. I will see you in my next video, I guess.